Okay, we'll go to number 2, future of senior center building.
So I guess this was put on the agenda just to kind of decide what we want to do going forward, because this was something that was brought up at one point. And I think a lot of people got invested in it. I think we just need to know what direction the village board wants us to go in going forward.
Okay, are you, do you have any comments as far as where we stand money-wise to be able to go ahead with this building or to delay it?
Personally, based on our finances, I would suggest delaying it 5 years maybe. We're very tight when it comes to downtown, where we want to be expanding our funds for expending. And it would be a lot for us to put, you know, 700,000 plus into a facility right now for a senior center, when we need to be thinking about, when we get this bypass to go through, what we want to do with funds there. So I think it's just a little premature for us to be necessarily talking about this for the senior center aspect of it as of right now.
And we still use this room, that's what it was initially built for, was for the seniors to use. So they definitely have a beautiful room to use until we can get the funds to support building a new building.
And I think the build that we had planned for the 700,000 was very, I guess, bare is how I would say it. From what Pat was talking about, what they wanted, and with some of the people in the senior community wanted, I think if we're gonna do something and expense a large amount of money in the future, it would be better to kind of have it done the way that it should be done, I guess, rather than doing a bare bones facility that might need to be updated within a few years to expand. So that was part of the comments, because you guys talked about a multi-generational center potentially, and that would increase the cost from what it was, and I just think, yeah. So.
I think what we're running into here is there was a lot of talk early on, and so people got excited. And then there was a group of us that went and toured a facility and came back with some ideas, like Nathan said, of something a little, you know, more inclusive of not just seniors, but looking at other organizations, including the Legion, and they were also part of this. I think people understand that maybe a delay needs to happen, but I'm hoping we can go about it in a good way, where we involve our committee more with a long-term planning of some sort, involving the senior activities committee from the get-go with, you know, what do we want? Involve the school, if we want a multi-generational, community groups, some kind of strategic plan, long-range planning, then we can look at grants, we can look at funding, we can look at donors. I guess I don't want to see it tabled and buried. I think there was a lot of excitement about it, and I think, to be fair to our committee, and there's 2 members here that may want to speak about it too, I would just hate to see it totally tabled, you know, forever and forgotten about, because there was a lot of hype about it. I don't know if Joanne or Rose, they can speak, right, during COW meeting?
Basically, Bob said we can let people speak,
Okay.
but just keep it short and to the point, if you wish to speak.
I don't want to put him on the spot, only if you want to.
Okay.
And if anyone wishes to remove their mask during a board meeting, they can, because this is a government meeting, and you are totally allowed to do that when you speak. So feel free if you cannot speak loudly, otherwise we wouldn't be able to hear you.
Well, I can understand now, you know, we do need to table this for now,
because there is a lot of enthusiasm about it. And I think it's something that we do need, especially working with the schools and more, so that it's not just the senior center, it's a community center. And that's the way we were looking at it. We'd like everyone to be involved, not just seniors.
And I think you agree that we wanted to hold meetings and get public opinion and
Right,
because
and we
of
do
COVID,
need that, and that's
we-
where we were going when we started this.
yes.
And, I don't know if we weren't heard enough or what, but it seems, things kind of I think things were pushed too fast, too soon. We do need more input from the community, we do need more input from everybody.
And I think the senior committee can possibly go ahead with things like that and get ideas. And we will definitely listen to that because, we do see a need and it will, be in the future, is what
Right.
we're trying to say.
And when we looked at this other, we were just trying to be proactive, thinking that when we do start talking about this, we will have some background, and we're trying to do our homework, and then all of a sudden, things just kind of went a little faster than what we thought, with very little input from anyone else, so.
Does anyone else have any comments?
I also feel the same way, Jeannie, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm fine with tabling it. It is a need for this community to help bring us together as a community. And by having this facility, and by pushing this out, it gives us time to investigate what's out there for us for financing, for the grants and all of these things, because there's so many out there. And if we try to push this through, we're gonna miss opportunities for this. And grants can take sometimes 2-3 years, depending upon who it's through, to process it. So, I mean, I'm fine with it as long as we don't bury it. And I think, I don't know if I can speak for Pat and Rose, but for myself, I'm not gonna let you bury it.
That's perfectly fine.
That's probably not gonna happen.
We've got a good committee.
Are there any other comments? If not, we'll move to 3, relocation of American Legion. And Tom, did you wish to say anything?
Well, I refer to the handout that I gave. Everybody should have it. The first page is just our commercial, the impact we have on the village, what we've done, and we did have a financial investment in that building, and so just want people on the board to understand that we're committed to this town, even though a lot of us Legionnaire members live around the area. There's a number from Hortonville, and it says Hortonville on our hats, so we want to be an asset to this town, to this village, and we're willing to work with the village, in leaving the Opera House and going wherever, but, we attached copies of the village meeting minutes or a proclamation or whatever that is from a previous board, that they would supply us with lodging and storage space. And then the last page is just what we're about, what the Legion is about, youth and children and veterans rehab. And so I guess our question here tonight is, what's next? I mean, we were told one thing a couple months ago, and then it changed, and then it changed. So we're willing to work, but we just want to know how we fit in and how we can help.
May I ask what you were told?
Well, several months ago, we were told this building was going to be done by the end of the winter, and that didn't happen. And then now, just recently, we were told we had to be out of the building there on Main Street by January 1st.
Who told you that?
Carl.
Carl did.
Carl and myself.
Yeah.
We
So it kind of shocked us a
we
little
didn't
bit.
tell them they had to be.
Oh, well, that's the way we took it.
We said if there was a lease and there was a full-term lease in there, then you would have to be. So there was a potential that yes,
Okay.
and we wanted to warn you, and that's kind of why we
Okay.
told you.
Tom, a couple of members of the Historical Society have reached out to me to represent, or to at least voice their opinions tonight, and they were told something a little bit different. In fact, they were kind of told different things. So
Okay. I
I was just kind of curious what you were told. Robert Schneider had a wonderful conversation with him this past week. Catch up with him often.
Okay.
I guess he has a lot of passion, if you're, but the other piece of it was he asked specifically about the Legion and asked how the Legion fits into this picture of everything too. And his questions were, what were you told? He thought that there was something of a perpetuality, and whether that be the Opera House or wherever that might be. But it was after one of the world wars, correct? I mean, it was after World War I, if I'm not mistaken.
Apparently
Okay.
there was another document preceding this one, and I don't have it.
I don't have it either, and I was hopeful that maybe the village has something that would
Yeah. And I
show
know
that.
Bruce Foley told me many times there was a document that she saw when she was on the board.
Okay. Thank you. I just want to make sure that we're all getting the same information, because I'm getting bits and bobs of it, and then I don't know who's the ringleader. I don't know what, I certainly don't want to throw an organization under the bus, because I believe an organization is the innocent bystander, and maybe there's some, I don't know. I just know that you're being heard. Thank you.
And we were willing to work with the village, and, if you want some people on the committee with you, we'd be happy to serve, so
Mhm.
we're here to help.
Thank you for your service.
So my understanding of this is that, right now, we're just working on contingency plans in case, in the eventuality of police going through. Because there's nothing been signed by anyone yet. So
Correct.
for the Opera House to be leased. So what we're trying to figure out is what's gonna be amenable to all the parties. The senior group and the Legion and anybody else, the Historical Society, anybody else who uses that facility. So nothing is set in stone, so just so you are aware, no matter what you're told right now.
I appreciate that.
Yeah,
We're
and that's-
just here to lay it all out, and, whatever
Yeah.
we have to do, we have to do.
Exactly, that's why I just want to make sure what you're hearing is from a direct source, and you saying that it was from the village, then that helps me understand some of it, because the other pieces of it are more of a hearsay.
No, did you have a meeting and say that you were willing to build a building? Is that what you had stated? Because that's what I got from Bob. That if we could
We'd be
find,
willing to help build a building, I don't know that we could handle building a building on our own.
Okay, so then you're-
Presumptive thinking by some.
you're basically saying that you wanted the village to build you a building.
Or just provide us with some meeting space,
Well, and we have always said you're very welcome to use this room.
okay.
So we would not be tossing you to the street.
Right.
You would be
Well, yeah, we
very
understood that.
welcome to use this room, always.
Okay. The problem was with our ceremonial rifles that we use for funerals, they're in that basement and they have to be in a climate-controlled room, otherwise they rust up. And so we had talked with the chief a little bit about that, so we're still working on that.
We have an armorer, or an armory or whatever, in where we have our safe with all our rifles and stuff like that. Bob came over with some dimensions of what their gun safe would be. We could squeeze another safe in there if we needed to, just to help them out if need be, and if the village would approve it.
How many members do you have right now?
In the Legion,
Yes,
135, and the auxiliary has about 90 ladies.
that's very awesome.
Would that, you're talking about a gun safe, would that be movable or fixed, permanent fixture? Because at some point, we're looking at, if this lease does go through, at some point, you're looking at the senior center maybe years down the road, or one of these other options. I mean, if you're getting it specifically for that, it would seem to make more sense to have something you could take out and move.
This is the safe that they have there currently.
Yeah,
So they would be moving it from the Opera House to here. So they could move it from here to wherever that they needed to move it, is my understanding.
It's on
oh, okay, so they already have the, oh, okay,
Yes.
I misunderstood.
Yep, no, they have it. They're just,
Okay.
they need to have their gun safe in a climate controlled room.
Okay. I misunderstood. I thought you were
So
saying
for
we
one
could
of
put
them
another
to-
one in here.
And it's very big, it's, 76 inches high, 36 by 27, so it's a full-size safe. And for one of them to take it on and put it in their house someplace would probably not be reasonable.
What
And I
other
mean,
storage
there's always,
needs-
oops, sorry.
I'm sorry.
There's
What other
always,
storage needs do you have?
Well, we have our flags that we use, engraved markers that we use for Memorial Day, and, probably a room 10 by 10 would handle us, but, we have supplies for brat fries and, Nescos, the girls have all kinds of Nescos. Kitchen utensils and things like that.
I think you currently have a refrigerator in the Opera House kitchen, yes?
Yes.
Yeah, a refrigerator. Do you have things in the kitchen as well? Or the
The
Nescos are
girls did
stored?
have, but I think they were working with Carl to move all that.
I think they moved them when they put that opening in, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Well, the two stoves that are down there, we donated them to the village some, years ago. Those commercial duty stoves,
Mhm.
so I don't know if they're used much, but we did donate them, so.
Does anyone have any other comments?
So Chris, would that cramp your long-term style at all in terms of the gun storage, should they utilize that?
So would you guys be okay using this space?
Yes,
Okay.
better than me.
I mean, it's a nicer space than where you're at now. I
Yes.
mean, it's just, it's just figuring out the logistics of the storage for your other stuff.
So you don't have a problem with us doing any social activities during our meetings, we do have beer.
Jane, what is your take on that?
It shouldn't be sold, served, or consumed here. They need to have a liquor license
Okay.
If it's sold.
if it's sold.
It's by donation, we don't,
Okay.
we have it there, and you wanna make a donation for a can of beer, it's a donation.
And you would likely want a place to store your
Kind of gray.
your liquor and the beer and that sort of thing too, right? Where you socialize?
Well, they can't store it here.
No,
But I think it'd be wise to
we
get
could
a
bring it
license.
in.
I
Because
think
I
that
think-
would be that onerous, and,
It's a very gray area.
to make exceptions to that, Tom, would be
Okay,
problematic.
okay, so you'd have to have a license every month or once a year?
No.
Just once a year.
Okay,
But we'd be able to make an exception for them to consume here?
You can consume here already, as long as you fill out the permit application. The
Okay.
issue is the donation necessarily, they would have to, that's selling,
Okay.
so they would
And-
need
And is there a fee associated with that
Yes.
permit? What's the fee?
Yeah,
class.
and depends what the liquor license is, but it's, 400 or 600.
Is that something that we can waive?
Yeah, none of the money goes to the, other than the village, does it?
Right, no.
Okay. Well, that would be something that I think we could discuss. I mean, we wouldn't want to take away, your ability to have your meetings the way that they are now.
We each have a glass of beer or two when we go home, and we're not
I
35 anymore.
I understand.
And that
Well, I know Dennis
basically-
can drink a little more
Well,
than
yeah,
one or two,
yeah.
so.
So then you would need
yeah.
access to the building for the times you get together, but also when you have a funeral or parades, anything like that, you would coordinate
Yes,
those
we'd have to
efforts
get
then
a-
with the PD?
Yes, yes. And we do have twice a year, we have the Legion birthday in March, and then the Veterans Day, we normally have I think the last time we had it here. So,
Okay.
And you definitely can schedule that in with the office so that we know we have the space for you and.
okay.
When are your meetings held out?
Second Monday of the month, 7 p.m.
Okay. The space is used and it's reserved for different reasons, so you'd have to make sure that you can, schedule around that or be flexible at sometimes. I mean,
Well, if this lease doesn't go through, are we safe to say we can stay where we were?
I wouldn't see why
For the-
not.
I don't think the
Yeah.
status quo would change for the time being.
So we can
Yeah.
hold our breath for a while now.
That's why I said we're just dealing with contingency plans if it does, if and
Okay.
when it does go through.
But just so you know that we wanted to meet with you to make sure we had something in order if this does go through by the first of the year, that you would know where you can be at,
Yeah,
so,
we appreciate that.
okay.
Again, we wanna, we were excited about a new building and we were willing to work with whatever, and that's, if it's down the road 4 or 5 years, we give everybody more time to plan, so fine.
Yeah, it would be nice to be able to plan.
What kind of, if another structure's built, do you have rough area of size that you would need for your meetings?
Well, about the size of this room
Okay.
would handle us.
And maybe storage if possible?
I'm sorry?
And maybe storage?
Oh, yeah.
Storage if possible.
Yeah, we needed at least a 15 by 15 room for storage, And that was all figured in on that previous plan we were talking about at one time, so.
Does the auxiliary still do the pie sale?
They do, I don't know how that's gonna affect them,
Because you used to use the ovens
Yes,
down there.
yes.
Okay.
Okay,
I was hoping one of them could come tonight, but they were, unfortunately, all the officers were at the meeting Monday night. They couldn't come,
Okay.
so.
Well, we can keep that in mind though,
Yeah.
too, maybe for discussion purposes.
then is everyone okay with what we discussed? All right, then we will move on to 4, Historical Society upstairs storage of the Opera House. Nathan, do you wanna go ahead with that, since you did this chart?
Well, I guess the chart kind of goes in with the potential lease more than the other stuff, but basically so for the Historical Society, there's the agreement that you guys asked us to put on there for the agenda, I guess. But the Opera House costs and stuff to the village, which is why we're kind of potentially looking at a full-term rental. I handed out to you guys, I guess, do you have any questions, or?
We didn't talk about the chart with Legion, so I'm assuming that this is just a broad, everything about the Opera House. I guess I do have a question about the Historical Society. When Joan Doctor was called, she was told about a possibility of putting a cabinet in the municipal center here in the hallway, which is a great idea, about rotating some of the artifacts and that sort of thing. But what she was not told was the possibility of a termination of the agreement. Reed Schneider had a rummage sale this past year, and Reed was told the very same thing, that, and very exciting. It would be wonderful to have some of the artifacts here in the municipal center. But I believe Joan should have at least been kind of given that heads up back when that phone call was made. So when I called Joan to talk to her about what was on the agenda, she seemed stunned. I guess I just would like to understand, was this the plan initially to terminate, or was it when the phone call was made, or when a rummage sale happened, was it just when you were making these calls or contact Jeannie?
Yeah,
Did you tell them the second really important part of that?
all this lease pretty much is that you're using the mezzanine, the upstairs balcony for the historical things.
I understand
So-
that, but when you called Joan to tell her, you told her about a cabinet but didn't tell her about the termination.
We told her there would be cabinets to display all of the things, and that, yes, they would all be taken out of the Opera House
She
at that
was
time.
not told that things would be taken out of the opera. I just want to make sure that everybody's getting the same information, because she didn't know that meant, she thought it was going to be an additional cabinet. I just want to make sure that we're all very, very transparent about this, because there are people who can't be here tonight because of COVID, or because that they're in an assisted living facility and physically can't be here. But when a phone call was made to Joan Doctor, who I have an immense amount of respect for, she was told about a cabinet, but she was not told that it would be terminated and we'd have to move. And that's where I have an issue with this. And I just need to understand, at some point, was it just that we were, because when we met with the Appleton Alliance Church, I thought this pastor was wonderful. It was a public facilities meeting. He sounded like he would be willing to work with everybody, or maybe if we could share some space. At no point do I remember Appleton Alliance saying, we want the Legion out and we want the Historical Society out. I don't remember them saying that.
What we're doing is putting all the things that are upstairs on display that no one can see, and I told Joan that. And I told the Schneiders that. And they were on board because I said, Carl told us he would put it in the budget and he would have cabinets. He would make sure everything was kept clean and it would be lighted and people could come into this building and see what historical things we have.
Which I think is a beautiful thing, Jeannie. But unfortunately, Reed nor did Joan have that impression leaving the conversation. So I don't know, maybe we just weren't clear enough, because I got asked, well, if you knew about a termination, why didn't you tell us sooner, Julie? And I said, well,
There wouldn't be anything to terminate. Everything would be over here. There wouldn't be anything left in the Opera House. So why would we not legally, because it says you legally need to do this,
correct.
then why would we not legally terminate this, since everything would be here now and in the future? So there would be no need to use the upstairs of the Opera House where no one can go except if they make an appointment, which I would say 99.9% of the people in this village or anywhere do not know that we have all those beautiful things up in that upstairs to see.
Correct.
When we could put them here, this building is used. We have the library, the police department, the administration,
All
everyone
I'm
would see
asking,
this.
Jeannie, is if we can just be really transparent to everybody, because the two parties I spoke with, neither one of them had the impression that it was being terminated. Neither. And I just want to make sure that if there are public facility meetings that are happening I didn't go to, or if there's potentially a walking quorum of some board members that were discussing this, I don't understand. I just want to make sure that we're being transparent. And that's why I saw the agenda and I went, okay, I have to call Joan. I have to call her. And she
And
said,
I just spoke to her this week,
okay.
and she seemed to be totally fine with us moving everything here.
What day this week?
I talked to her probably Tuesday this week.
She didn't know about termination. Well, no, it might have been, I would have to look back on my
Well, I
phone.
never used the word
I'm really
terminate.
confused here.
I never used the word termination.
I'm
but
really confused
I
where the
guess-
termination comes from.
It's on the
Because,
agenda.
so here's, yeah, but here's the information that I have, right, so far. Is we sat in here and the Public Facilities Committee gave a report saying that they had met with the church and that they weren't going to, nobody was gonna get kicked out and they were going to be very agreeable and provide space from what was passed on to me, because I didn't go to, I'm not on the Public Facilities Committee and I wasn't there. So, but what was passed on to us was that they were, the church, the leasing was potential leasing, not even
Correct.
not even a leasing yet, but potential leasing, would express that they were going to be accommodating and that the people that were currently using the space were going to be okay to use the space until such time as they could facilitate a new place to take care of whatever business that they were doing, right? That's the last thing that I heard. Now, we still only have a potential leasing.
understand.
So there is no true termination. So that's where I'm confused, where this, we should tell people it's terminated. Nothing's terminated yet.
Because the potential for termination this evening,
It's
because
on the,
it's on the agenda.
yeah, it's a discussion point for the agenda.
Correct. It's
But
a
nobody's terminated anything yet.
Correct.
So we shouldn't be we can be transparent, but we shouldn't be telling anybody anything's terminated yet.
But when we make a phone call to tell someone about cabinets,
Yes?
we could say, we're putting it on the agenda, there is the possibility. The Legion was told that they were told by a village employee that they were gonna need to be out by January 1st. This is where I was asking, who's telling these people this?
Potentially.
but they told the Legion that. So I just want to make sure that if this is truly what's going to happen, that we just make sure we're transparent. I think the Appleton Alliance Church is an amazing organization. I'm excited to have them in Hortonville. I've heard wonderful things, but I just did not leave that facilities meeting with the impression that we were for sure going to do anything. And then there's a lease agreement. Did they ask for the lease agreement, or are we?
They have a board that has to review. We were just talking about this earlier. This is just a preliminary, because their board has to review it, we have to review it, but somebody has to start the ball rolling with something as a proposition. And we have to have something to discuss, whether to determine whether or not it's a viable alternative for us to move forward with.
Okay.
So we're still pretty early. I mean,
I agree.
there's
I agree.
a potential leaser or leasee, but we're still really early in this, and notifying, I think as transparent as you can be is even being is confusing as a parent with the Legion when the conversation was miscommunicated that they had to be out versus if there's a lease, this is what might be expected if we do sign a lease.
I just want to
Right,
make sure
so-
that if the Legion is being told one thing that the Historical Society, and granted, Joan, you contacted Joan, you talked to Reed. Actually, Reed typed up something that he'd like me to read on his behalf this evening. The Schneiders, a lot of people have a lot of passion for the building, and I just want to make sure, I understand that the Historical Society has that mezzanine up there. Is it being used at this time? No. Hasn't been touched since spring, but COVID started. I couldn't even get in the building for a few weeks to even bring stuff into storage. I couldn't get in the building. All field trips have been canceled this year. I'm not opposed to anything. I just want to make sure that we're telling people the full picture.
Well, and why, Julie, why we are going ahead with this is because Carl said, we will build cabinets. He wanted to put it in this year's budget for 2021. That is why we're going ahead with this. That's why we're discussing this right now. Because that's why I asked him, do you feel it's a good idea to bring that stuff out of that balcony and bring it here for people to see?
Understandably.
They were very excited about
But
it.
those items are not owned by the village. They're owned by the Hortonville Historical Society, which is a 501c3. They're not the Historic Preservation Committee. It's the Hortonville Historical Society. The agreement is with Hortonville Historical Society. We would love to put things in the hallway here. We would love for people to see more. We have some ideas of doing some more virtual museum as well. We have some ideas, but we really thought that leaving that meeting, that the Alliance was more of a, absolutely, we can come up with a way to share this space so that it feels like 90 days during a pandemic of having to pack up and move all that out and get a storage unit right now. It's possible, but it's also, I just think that's just not how we operate here.
So what is your issue with bringing that stuff here?
I have no problem bringing stuff here. There's no way to display it all here. It would be a rotational basis, but it's owned by the Historical Society. It needs to be managed by the Historical Society, and that's a state historical.
And no one
there's
ever
guidelines.
said that you wouldn't.
No, but what I'm saying is, when you call the woman who has designed and built and created this Historical Society, I'm just asking you to please be honest with her and give her the full picture. She didn't know the word terminate. I read the agenda to her and I said, Joan, I just want to prepare you that I'm going to do everything I can to get it where if we have to move, we move in a way that is respectful of these belongings. She says, well, they can't terminate. We have an agreement. I said, well, no, actually in the agreement it says they can give 90 days. I just want to be sure that we're being really respectful to the people who, I think it was between the Legion and the Historical Society and AAL and the state, just a shy of $500,000 went into that building. And I just want to be really respectful of the people who have put their heart and soul into something. I have nothing against the Alliance, but I just feel like we need to be super respectful of the people that have come before us.
So then what would you keep there? I guess
I'm not asking
that's my question then. If we bring it here, what would be there to keep?
If you brought items here, you would never be able to put everything here. So it would be rotational. But we have no storage at this point. We would have to pay for a storage unit at this point to store. I do have some storage that I use in the very basement. If people drop things off at my home, I bring them there. I do rotate items when we're able to give tours. there's no we have no storage. If we move things to a cabinet or two here, we then have to pay either a monthly storage fee or now it has to go into someone's home. And that can bring up, I mean, that there's just no storage here.
So I feel that the word termination being used on the agenda was probably a bad choice.
Thank you.
I feel like the discussion really is a contingency plan, the same as what we're doing for the other group.
Thank you.
It's, if this happens, then we have to do this, or we have to figure out this. These are the things that need to happen if this happens. So I personally feel that having this stuff displayed here is a great idea. I personally have never been up in the upstairs of the Opera House to see any of the historical documents. I do follow Reed's stuff on Facebook, but other than that, I have never gone up there. I wouldn't even know how to book an appointment to go up there. However,
They have a Facebook page.
however, and I think it would be better suited for the public to see if it was here, because more people flow through this building. But I don't think in my opinion, and maybe I'm completely wrong, that the plan right now, or the real intent was saying, yep, we're canceling right now. I think the goal, in my opinion, was we need to have that discussion now of what we're doing with this stuff if that happens. If we have someone who rents this facility long-term and then says, yeah, we can't have this.
Thank you, Shauna, for adding the correct verbiage. What I'm getting at is, we threw the word termination on the agenda. I asked where that came from, and I was told the president said this, put this on there. The word termination is so strong and so defiant, or not defiant, definite. Yes, there's you can give a 90-day notice. And these folks, I'll be honest, it will likely be on my shoulders. My family will be the ones moving these items. Robert Schneider wanted to be here tonight. He couldn't be here. Joan wanted to be here tonight. She couldn't be here. We need to respect these people, and using the word termination was just, to me, a kick in their teeth. The Schneiders alone have donated so much money at that building and have never ever gotten anything from the village saying, we've named the ballroom after you. I do not want to insult these people. I don't want to insult the Legion. I don't want to insult anybody with the Historical Society. We owe it to these people to tread carefully and respectfully of everything that they've worked so hard for.
Yeah, I just think that the goal here is to look at worst case scenario. If this happens, if this moves forward, because that's what's best for the community as well, we need to make sure that we have solutions for those that are there now. I think, in my opinion, that's the need, because I mean, if this lease actually, down the road comes to fruition, we need to make sure that everyone is prepared for that move. So, I mean, that's my 2 cents, right, wrong, or indifferent, but.
Thank you. I don't know if this is the appropriate time to read what Reed Schneider had given to me. He and I both we've actually had a lot of brainstorming over the last couple days. We love the idea of putting cabinets here and displaying these items that we feel are hidden at the Opera House right now, but that's the only place that they were given at that time to do. It would be beautiful to do that. We can't put everything in there. We now need to figure out what we would do for storage. We do have some money that is coming in every year. We could put that towards storage. But with the State Historical Society, they're incredibly particular on how these items are cataloged, stored, and how they're displayed. So if you give me a second here, I'd like to read what Reed says. And I do have to preface this with, I think the Appleton Alliance being here in the village would be amazing. It would be a great use of the building. But I think this lease agreement, there's a little room for improvement with some flexibility, maybe working with some of the existing, or the Legion if they needed the storage, or if the Historical Society needed storage or something, because it kind of makes it look like at that point they're in there, no one else can ever use that building for the next 365 days. And in my opinion, that's what the lease agreement looks like. But I'm going to read this on behalf of Reed. Dear Hortonville Village Board, please accept my opinions regarding current actions regarding the community hall. I need to first say, I believe it is great for the Appleton Alliance Church to have found a home in Hortonville. In these trying times, an increase in the presence and study of the Lord is a true blessing. 2, I do believe, however, that the board may need to reconsider exactly how this relationship moves forward. 3, it's called the community hall for a reason. It has been used for almost 100 years as a place for many community events to take place. Legion meetings, historical society presentations, weddings, and the list goes on and on. A lease, which basically turns it into a single-use facility, is a very large departure from the past and at the expense of the above-mentioned loyal and honorable groups. My parents, Robert and Ann Schneider, have donated many thousands of dollars to help preserve the building. Strongly implied in this is giving is for the hall to be used as a gathering place for the entire community. This generosity was not intended to benefit any individual or single group. It seems as though the current proposed lease is effectively a constructive eviction of all current community groups. Please advise if I have misinterpreted anything. I am unaware of prior board proceedings on record where this lease was discussed, vetted, or community input solicited. The fact that 20+ years ago, the community had a referendum on how the hall should be handled. Open and transparent negotiations are the order of the day, and it seems as though a lot of board action took place without transparency and community input. Let's take a step back here. Let's work with the church to exactly determine absolute needs as opposed to wants during the proposed lease term. In the presence of a single room in the facility dedicated to the American Legion, a fatal obstacle to the lease moving forward. Again, it is a blessing to have AAC involved in our community. In fact, I attended the first service last Sunday. It was very uplifting. Thank you for listening, and let me know if I can help. And until the best regards. And he has his phone number here if anyone wants to call him. So I'll get off my soapbox here, but I just have to say that whatever we do, we need to be super respectful of the people who have worked their asses off to either maintain that building, to renovate, and have served our country and people that we have made promises to. And the community I like to live in is the community that keeps their promises. And we made promises, and if we work with the Legion to give them a different space and do that, but then we need to stick with that. I don't want this 10 years down the road where another board says, well, I know what we gave you storage, but now we're really tight on storage, so now we can't hold it here. I don't want to do that. Whatever we do needs to give peace of mind to those folks that whatever we do, we're going to keep our word. That's what I'd like to do. So we can talk about moving it. I can say, yes, I'd love to put some items here in the display cases. If given the opportunity to have the Opera House, yes, we would use at least even a portion of that space just for some of the bigger items that we can't display in a smaller case.
And how are you displaying those now?
Currently, they're in cases. Some of the larger items, I think of like a big wooden box, I think it came from the craft store. I mean, I'm thinking of some of the bigger things that are up there. There's also clothing that's hung up. There's a band uniform from the early 1900s that was just recently donated. Some of the display items are case worthy, and some of them there's no way you could put them in a case. There's things from the I think it's the craft store, but I think of like big stuff. I think of things that we've had to take shelves out to put in, so it takes up an entire case. Some of the cases we have things hung up. We were actually, to be honest with you, I left the public facilities meeting going, this is going to be wonderful. There are going to be more people in this building every week. If we could get people, if we could work together as a collaboration, we could get people up there and maybe get more members on this historical society. I honestly thought that this was going to be an opportunity where maybe we move some of the things so that they could use part of the mezzanine, maybe have a little bit there, and maybe generate some interest. I honestly left the meeting that night believing that that was where we were headed. If I would have thought we would be using the word termination.
Most of the time when that building is rented for weddings, showers, any other activity, that stairway is blocked off. You are not allowed up there.
Which is funny because most of the pictures I see from weddings are pictures from up above and from baby showers, and people go up there, and people do. I mean, we have a QR code there. People do. I get likes on Facebook where you can tell there's an event going on there. People do go up there. It's just meant that they didn't want kids going up there goofing around. There's things that have been damaged and broken. There's things that have been damaged and broken with having, inner and outer straight they broke in. And that was just on the main level. I'm not opposed to sharing. It'd be nice to have maybe a little bit more visibility there too, but the storage, we use storage there. And without that storage now, we now have to start paying for storage somewhere. And I always felt like that storage was in exchange for everything that those folks did to help raise money for renovation. I just never felt we were taking advantage of the I just,
Well, no one
No.
ever said that.
No, but I mean,
We're
I-
just looking at getting this out to the public.
exactly, but I feel like by making the Historical Society move from point A to point B is not horrible, but now we need a place to go with half of point A, and it's now gonna be a storage unit, that's gonna be a monthly cost to us. And that's where, you know, that's the huge downfall. Would it be nice to have something there so that maybe people coming into the community from Appleton Alliance Church see our history too? That'd be great. Especially history about that building, that'd even be better. There's a whole case up there about the Legion. I've got a huge picture that's big from World War I believe. It is beautiful. It'd be nice to display it here, but you know, the storage is what I'm worried about. Because the State Historical Society is so meticulous on how things are handled. So,
Does
So-
anyone have any other suggestions?
Yeah, maybe, I mean, I wasn't at the public facilities meeting, but someone from the church was, right?
was it Brian?
Approval.
He was wonderful, yeah.
So maybe it would be helpful to get the representatives from the church together with representatives from the groups that are currently in there, so that way they all have a good understanding of what, I mean, all this is, none of this
It's
is
a
real.
draft.
This
It's
is a draft.
It is
right?
absolutely a
And
draft.
this is a cookie cutter draft at that, you know, with only a couple of changes here put in. But maybe it would be a good idea to get them together, to have another public facilities meeting with that as the agenda.
That was honestly,
And get these groups together.
we left that night, I honestly thought, you know what? How cool is that? We can get people upstairs. We can get more people, we can get more people here to see.
Well, I mean, that would be great if the church is amenable to that and we can get the groups together, maybe the group of them can figure out a nice resolution and everybody can be happy. And we can get cabinets here with some of the historical
Which I think
items displayed.
would be absolutely great. Like I said, my issue comes from, here's a copy of the agreement, and then on the agenda, the words termination of Historical Society. It just felt like such a kick in the teeth. And perhaps it was misinterpreted, but it's black and white.
It was written wrong.
It
be
was
honest.
written poorly.
It wasn't meant to be that language there.
Yeah.
It was supposed to match the cow.
If it
Turned out
said,
wrong on staff's fault, my fault. So
well,
I apologize for that. But
if it would have said termination of American Legion,
right, and that's why it doesn't, because it wasn't supposed to. It was written wrong, and I apologize. Like I said, I apologize for that. That wasn't meant to be there. I
Okay.
think the whole reason this was brought up was because at the public facilities meeting, the second the mezzanine was talked about at all with a future rental, we were shut down and said, you can't do anything up there because of this agreement.
There's an
So
agreement.
our fear was, at the office level was, you know, if they want the whole thing and they don't want to work, and the Historical Society doesn't seem to want to potentially work with them, our fear was it would kill a potential deal
yeah.
with them.
At the same time, we
Right.
want to make sure that all the groups are getting what they need out of the situation, even if, I mean, the best case scenario, right, is that all three of you are happy and,
Yeah.
you know, we get the win with the church, we get, you know, the Historical Society gets what they need, the Legion gets what they need, and everyone's happy. But we have to do the steps to play all the
I
what
agree.
ifs, right?
Not-
And
we
have
went
those
from-
Not only the
discussions.
village board knowing the steps, each group.
Each
you
group
know,
being very-
The Legion's
Well, we
gonna
went from 0 to
look at what
60.
they
Agreed.
need for storage and facilities in the
Yes.
future. Same thing with the Historical Society and the other groups that use that.
But I
You know, we-
truly believe that
it's,
the word there
everybody
is
should be
what's
doing-
got the heartache for you.
So the other thing, which I found ironic, when Appleton Alliance Church, actually, when they did their big announcement of what they were doing, part of their video footage is up of the museum. Part of their video, I mean, they're excited about this, and it was the one thing that Brian had said that struck with me, that he said, we are excited to embrace this village's history. I love the idea. I'd like to sit down, and whether that outcome is, yeah, we really can't have you up there anymore, or we really need that space downstairs. But at least it's discussed. It's not just,
Well, and there's the possibility of you maybe downsizing the amount of space. If
Absolutely.
we've got some here, kind of splitting it, which then gives them the space that they need there plus
Absolutely.
you. So it's
Reed and I discussed it today. We talked about what we could do to downsize, and we've actually brainstormed quite a bit in the last 48 hours. But do we need that entire mezzanine? No. I think at the time it was given, it was an exchange for everything that went through, but plus they needed a place with all their stuff.
I think there's just a lot of talk still that needs to happen here. It's still very
Yeah.
premature, and we
I think the other thing that happened is we were supposed to have a public facilities meeting.
and it got pushed, it got.
Wasn't
That
this
had
on the
nothing to do
agenda?
with
Yeah,
this.
I think you should get the parties
But I
together.
think
I think so
I agree.
too.
The
I
end
think
of
you
the
should get the
month,
party- I
It was
mean,
supposed to
we-
be CIP for the,
Oh, I'm sorry.
that's all that
So
was.
basically,
But the
we
opera house is
should,
part of that, and that's where, yeah, but the other thing I think we need to talk about though too is that the timing of this. So if we're looking at a potential lease, if we're looking at that, so let's say the Legion does need to move out, or the Historical Society does need to move out, I think there also should be some, a little bit of give too on some timeframes, because they may need to do some things. I'll be honest, we have to do quite a bit too. I'll be honest, I looked at this and said, well, if there's a termination that came tonight, that puts me, I have to get everything out of there by Christmas.
Well, and that's why I think that the discussion between the three groups would be very beneficial before anything else happens, so I
Yes.
think
so
that that's.
basically, we should have a public facility meeting with
Yes,
Invite
Good.
everyone
with the-
involved.
yes.
Yeah, with
Agree.
all the
And-
parties.
Yep.
Just have that on the agenda and nothing
Yes,
else.
Yes.
And right now, we should just,
Come to a resolution.
let this go tonight because there's nothing that can be decided.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
that's the
I
place
agree.
to start, is
Yeah.
to
I
get the
agree.
parties together.
Yeah, just sit down and have a very informal discussion, because you might have needs that are like, we don't need this anymore. We obviously have already said, we don't need all that space. However, it would be nice to have a little, or if we have to move, well then maybe 90 days, having us try to move everything out by the holidays is not gonna work. Could we have till, I think Appleton Alliance, and I wanna make this very, very clear, I think they're an amazing, amazing church, and I have nothing against them. I don't ever want this to ever come out of this meeting going, that's not the intent here. This would be for any long-term lease, so,
And
I mean,
I
on
don't
the
think
agenda.
anybody takes it that way, Julie, at all.
Okay.
think,
I just wanna be
Yeah.
clear, because people can
Yeah.
sometimes word of mouth, go, well, it's Julie against the church, and it's not Julie against the church.
No, I just think that there needs to be a conversation
Yeah.
before
So-
we move anywhere.
So on the agenda, we have on here the Opera House lease, and I think we were all just given the draft today. I mean, I have some suggestions of some changes, but I don't even know who, is this from them, or did we create this?
Bob
says
and I,
no.
So are we
well,
moving
I
into
created-
number 5 then,
Just-
the Opera House
Yeah.
lease?
Yeah,
Okay.
I created it as a starting point. If there's gonna be a discussion, that there be something there, a little more substantive that you can, talk about. That was the only purpose of it.
Okay, can we, before this is ever given to them, can we make sure they know that this discussion happened this evening? That we do
So-
wanna get together for public facilities?
yeah,
We
and
would definitely.
basically,
do that.
when Carl and I came up with those were just what we saw potential. Brian knows, I've been in contact with him, I told him, A, this isn't passed by our board, I know you have a board that you have to send it to as well. And basically that it's a dynamic document, it will change, it most likely. So, yes, I will be contacting him tomorrow, kind of about what's going on and basically to kind of try to help facilitate a meeting for all the groups.
Okay,
So it's
so I
not
guess
like,
if,
we're not signing it tonight,
No.
it's just, I needed to kind of get a frame of reference for what you guys envision. If there was a year-long lease there for someone,
have these gentlemen,
what you guys would like.
has anybody from the Legion seen this at all?
Not not the potential lease,
Okay.
no.
I just would hate for somebody to get something, and I get it, it's a draft, but have somebody get this in their hands and see that, I mean, it does say about terminating in 90 days and that sort of thing. I guess, before we hand that off, can we at least agree that, I mean, when we discuss this with them, that we should say that, what is it on here? Lease of premises, I mean, that's the first
The
thing.
termination of lease is for them to leave, not necessarily the other residents that are there currently.
Upon
That's
exit-
in your use agreement.
Yeah, and upon execution of this lease agreement, leaseor, so that would be the village, shall then terminate the existing use of the leased premises by the Hortonville Historical Society and the American Legion. That is number 1 on the list, and I understand why it's there, because it's showing, okay, we'll get them out of there, but it's already giving them the message that we're on board with that, and if maybe we wanna open that dialogue up, do we want to?
That, anything can be changed. They know, I said this is the very
It's a
beginning.
rough draft,
Right,
And I
very
get that,
rough,
it's
and,
just the first item.
right,
right.
we can take that off, there's nothing.
Basically, Bob wrote it up
Okay,
as a rough draft for us to look at tonight.
Right.
Yeah, the
So
sooner we can
technically,
book that
Julie-
meeting, the better.
Julie, it's, you know, at the beginning, I usually indicate what premises we're talking about. And so, you know, we're talking about the whole thing, but we have other occupants, so that got dumped there.
okay.
And it's my style only, it was not intended for any nefarious reason.
Okay.
Does anyone have any questions on the draft? Because we will be bringing it up further if we have a public facility meeting.
So if they have a board, does this board need to talk directly with that board, or do we talk as a board, then it goes to
It's a
legal?
lot of
Then
back
they're
and
legal,
forth.
then it's legal, so it's sort of a back and forth kind of thing. It's not where the boards can sit down, okay.
I have a question about the lease. If we do, if all the blocks fall into place, and we do end up leasing the entire facility to the one tenant, we're still gonna have to terminate the leases with the other tenants. That doesn't mean they're getting kicked out, right? Be very clear, but our the village's relationship with them, with a lease, would still have to be terminated, correct?
Well, it could be written into the new lease.
It can be written into the new lease that,
Right.
that,
But
you know,
yes,
that there's an
because
agreement with
technically-
the leasee
Right.
and the current tenants. And that can become part of their, but our agreement with them would probably have to be terminated, wouldn't it?
Our agreement with.
With the Legion, with the Historical Society, with the Senior
Well,
Center,
we really don't have,
or whoever's there. We don't have anything?
we don't have an ongoing agreement. I mean, with the Historical Society, it's just, you know, a use agreement.
Okay,
And it says that, you know, if the village wishes to terminate the use agreement, you gotta give at least 90-day written notice.
well,
The
even,
one, the
yeah.
one with the Legion, Jim, was,
So the same thing.
yeah, I mean, it recognized,
Yeah,
It really just depends on how you write it in the lease to the church, right? I
Yeah.
mean, how you say either whether they're subletting to them or
Yeah.
whether we're maintaining that portion and only
Sort of like.
leasing out
Like
the
an
portion
easement.
I was
that
just looking
belongs
for
to.
An easement.
clarification as to, do we, if we're gonna lease the whole thing, do we have to
It totally
terminate anyway?
depends.
or
It
no?
depends
No, we
on
don't.
how you
Okay.
do it.
we wouldn't have to.
Okay,
Depends on how you
Jim?
word it.
Yeah, she's right.
okay.
Any
Okay.
other comments?
Anything from you, gentlemen?
If not, then we will need a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we are adjourned for
2 minutes?
2 minutes.